In the heart of Asewudu, a land surrounded by forests and rivers that gleamed like snakeskins, there lived a king unlike any other. His name was Oba Kuntu the Eternal, a ruler whose breath smelt of incense and iron, whose hands never aged though his children became elders. People believed he had bargained with the Ancient Ones, spirits who lived beneath the roots of the earth, trading his soul for time and terror. Oba Kuntu ruled for 50 long years, feared by chiefs and worshipped by priests. He built shrines with human skulls and made laws written in blood. The villagers dared not speak his name at night. Even the wind lowered its voice when it passed the palace. But as all things must, even Oba Kuntu's time came. One dawn, the palace gates remained closed. Drums were silent. Smoke did not rise from the king's sacred fire. When the gates finally opened, the royal guards carried the body of the king wrapped in lion skin, laid upon a wooden bed carved with serpents. The people did not cry. Instead, they stared in silence. Some felt hope. Others feared what might come next. That same night, thunder cracked the skies. The sacred baobab tree behind the palace split in two, and the high priestess, Mama Zimbi, emerged from the fire hut, foaming at the mouth and speaking in tongues. She screamed, "Oba Kuntu will not rest. 4 heads must travel with him, or his soul will rise and devour this land." Her voice was filled with terror. 2 men and 2 women must be buried with him, whole or in parts, or the soil will spit him back out. It was an ancient ritual, one the people had hoped forgotten. But fear was stronger than reason. The next day, the oracle was summoned. He threw cowries onto red cloth, murmured incantations, and summoned the spirits of judgment. The people watched in dread as he pulled names from the whispers of the dead. The chosen were Kojo, a 17-year-old goat herder with eyes that saw more than they should. Aba, a sharp-tongued girl of 16 who often challenged the elders. 2 strangers from the northern villages, prisoners long forgotten in the dungeon. The chosen were shackled and taken to the chamber of mourning, where they would wait for 7 days until the king's burial. On the 7th day, their heads would be removed and placed in a golden bowl beside the king's corpse, so he could eat in the afterlife. Kojo sat in silence, staring at the flickering torchlight. Aba paced like a lioness trapped in a cage. "We will die screaming," Kojo whispered. Aba's eyes glowed. "No, we will not die here. Not for a man already dead." Outside, the wind howled, and somewhere in the palace, the king's corpse twitched. Whispers in the chamber. The chamber of mourning was cold, dug deep into the earth below the palace. Its walls were made of red clay, streaked with salt to keep evil spirits from escaping. But in Asewudu, even salt could not stop what was already hungry. Kojo sat on a mat woven from dry plantain fibers. His ankle was chained to an iron ring buried in the floor. The chain had rusted, but still held fast. Beside him, Aba knelt in silence, her back straight, her eyes burning with fury. Neither of them spoke for hours. Then came the whispers. Not voices from the guards or the palace walls, but from within the room itself. The stones breathed. The shadows moved on their own. Kojo blinked and saw a face in the corner. No eyes, just a mouth grinning with crooked teeth. He jerked back. It vanished. "You saw it, didn't you?" Aba whispered. Kojo nodded slowly. "Something's watching us." "They say this room was where the king executed his first wife," Aba said, "and his second, and his third, all burned alive in the pit behind that wall." Kojo stared at the wall. It pulsed like it had veins. Suddenly, a scream tore through the dungeon corridor. One of the northern prisoners, one of the other chosen ones, was gone. Just like that. Vanished into the shadows. The guards searched every corner but found no blood, no bones, no footprints. Only silence. Mama Zimbi came hours later, her hair wild, her body painted in ash. She carried a clay pot filled with herbs and muttered ancient chants as she poured smoke over the 2 remaining prisoners. "The king is growing restless," she hissed, eyes white with trance. "His spirit does not like to wait. Give him heads, or he will walk." Kojo shivered. "But he's dead." Mama Zimbi looked at him. Her smile made his stomach twist. Some kings never die, they only change. When she left, Aba leaned close and whispered, "We're not waiting for the 7th day." Kojo looked at her. "What do you mean?" "I have a plan, but I'll need your help." She lifted her mat and pulled out a bone shard she'd hidden. "From last night's meat. I've been sharpening it on the floor. You're gonna stab a guard?" "No," she said. "I'm going to pick this lock." Kojo's eyes widened. They'll kill us if we're caught. They'll kill us if we stay, she snapped. I won't be food for a ghost king. That night, while the guards outside drank and played the talking drums, Oba worked quietly. The lock on her shackle clicked open. She handed Kojo the shard and showed him how to twist it between the rusty bolts. An hour later, both of them were free. Now came the hardest part, escaping the palace, past the guards, past the talismans, past the eyes of a king who would not sleep. The chamber door creaked, the shadows stirred, and something on the other side of the wall began to breathe. Oba and Kojo slipped through the cracks of fate like shadows in fog. The guards were drunk and lazy. They had no reason to believe the children would dare to escape. After all, no one had ever left the Chamber of Mourning and lived to tell it. But Oba and Kojo had something greater than fear, will. They crawled through the waste tunnel behind the chamber wall, using a piece of broken gourd as a shovel. It led into the underbelly of the palace, a web of darkness where forgotten prisoners moaned and rats gnawed on bone. At last, they found a loose grate that opened into the outer fields. They ran. The moon was high, a silver disk slicing through the black sky. Beyond the palace gates was a Hiwa forest, a cursed place that even the king's soldiers feared. No path, no light, only endless trees and the quiet breathing of things that didn't belong in this world. They didn't stop until the palace was nothing more than a memory behind them. But the forest did not welcome them. Oba paused near a cluster of ancient termite hills. We'll be safe in here for a while. Kojo collapsed onto the roots of a tree. Why does it feel like something's following us? Because something was. From the shadows came a whisper, not like a voice, but like flesh dragging across bark. Oba turned just in time to see a black figure dart between trees. It had no legs, only a body of smoke and golden royal rings around its arms. The king, she gasped. Kojo's lips trembled. But how? He's dead. A baobab tree behind them groaned. Open quote, "You can run, little goats," a raspy voice echoed. "But I have already tasted your names." Close quote. They ran again, deeper into the woods. But the forest twisted, paths bent backward, trees bled sap that smelled of ash. At one point, they circled back to the same anthill 3 times. "We're not alone," Kojo whispered. "No," said Oba, panting. "We're being hunted." Suddenly, a spear flew past their heads. It embedded into a tree with a hum. They turned and saw the Ankobia, the king's death hunters, standing silently in bone masks. Their eyes were pitch black and their skin was oiled to shimmer like the night. "Run!" Oba screamed. They sprinted through the underbrush, leaping over twisted roots and ducking under hanging vines. Behind them, the hunters moved without sound, faster than any man should. Then Kojo tripped. His leg twisted and he fell hard. Oba rushed to help, but the Ankobia were closing in. She looked at him, her breath ragged. "Can you move?" Kojo's face contorted in pain. "I don't know." The sound of drumming filled the air, but there were no drums. It came from the trees themselves. Open quote, "Dumb, dumb, 4 heads, 4 hearts. The king must eat." Oba dragged Kojo through the thick vines, his arms slung over her shoulder. Every few steps, he winced in pain. His ankle was swelling, turning purple under the moonlight. "We can't outrun them," he muttered. "Leave me and go." "I'd rather drag your heavy head to freedom than leave it for that corpse king," Oba snapped. Behind them, the Ankobia stalked with unnatural silence. Only the trees seemed to cry out, leaves rattling in fear. Oba saw an opening between rocks up ahead, a cave mouth wrapped in moss and silence. They ducked inside just before a spear skimmed the ground behind them. The cave was damp and breathing, like the lungs of something asleep. Kojo coughed. "This place, it's wrong. Wrong is better than dead." As their eyes adjusted, they saw carvings on the cave walls, paintings of heads floating above a throne and a crown dripping with blood. Aba's breath caught. "These are ancient," she whispered. "Older than Asewudu itself." Suddenly, the air thickened. The cave moaned. Kojo turned and froze. "Behind you." Oba looked, and there stood King Oba Kuntu, or what was left of him. His corpse was dry and blackened like charred wood. His eyes were glowing sockets, and his crown was crooked on a decaying skull. "You run from death?" he said, voice echoing off the stones. "But you were chosen. My spirit cannot cross without tribute." Oba stood in front of Kojo, shaking. "Then stay here. Rot." "We are not your tribute." The king lifted his arm. Behind him, 4 floating skulls circled. 2 men, 2 women, each still bleeding, their mouths agape in eternal screams. "The heads of the first dynasty," the king rasped. and yours will be the last. He stepped forward. The cave floor cracked. Oba clenched her fists. If we die, we take you with us. Suddenly, Kojo reached into his pouch and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. It was a small charm, a gift from his grandmother, a seed soaked in lion's blood and buried for 7 days under the new moon. She had told him it would burn wicked things. He slammed it on the ground. A burst of blinding light erupted. The king shrieked. His skull cracked. The cave began to shake. Now! Oba yelled. She grabbed Kojo, and they ran. The forest opened before them like it had waited all this time. The Ankobia were gone, and the king was no longer behind them. Oba and Kojo burst through the final wall of vines and landed at the edge of a rushing river. It was wide, furious, and glowing with moonlight. Beyond it was Wasa, a neighboring land free from Asewudu's ancient laws. Freedom. Kojo collapsed on the sand. We made it. Oba looked over her shoulder. The forest behind them hissed, but nothing emerged. For a moment, all was still, until the river bubbled. Kojo frowned. That's not right. The water rose, not in waves, but like something pushing it upward from below. Then the king rose from the riverbed. He was taller than before, his body bloated with river filth, and dozens of small hands clung to his back, the souls of the others sacrificed before. Open quote, "You cannot cross," he roared. "You are mine." Top close quote. Oba screamed and pulled Kojo to his feet. The king raised his hand, and the water split, revealing bones and skulls buried beneath. "Give me your heads," he growled, "and I will let the girl live." Kojo stepped forward, bloody and limping. "You have taken too much already." Then he turned to Oba. "Push me into the river." "What?" "Push me. I'll hold him. You swim. He only needs 4 heads. If I stay, he'll let you go." Aba's eyes welled. "No. You saved me. Now let me return the favor." The king approached. Oba screamed, and instead of pushing Kojo, she threw the lion blood seed pouch into the king's mouth. It exploded. The river caught fire. The king shrieked, the souls on his back screaming with him. He collapsed into ash, sucked into the water like dust into wind. Silence. The fire vanished. Kojo and Oba crossed the river together, limping, crying, laughing. When they reached Wasa, the people welcomed them with warm cloth and hot broth. The priests there listened to their story and sealed the border with charms. Asewudu later fell. The king's grave was never found. But travelers still say that if you walk too close to the river of no return, you'll hear a voice whisper, "I still need 2 more."